Tiger Woods just wrapped up his press conference at the U.S. Open, indicating that there could be light at the end of the tunnel with regards to these two tours finally possibly coming together. Also, there was a key important in-person meeting Friday in New York City between a number of players from both sides. I think what's really important is indicating whose was there. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but that may be even further indication that we could be close to a deal. Remarkably, it's hard to believe, Mike, but we are actually on the 1-year anniversary of when the framework agreement was first announced. That shocked the golf world, and since then has really been wondering, when are we going to finally bring everyone back together? So we're going to dig into what was said there. More importantly, like I said, what I was so shocked by was who was present in that meeting, right? Because it just seemed a little bit odd for what we've been hearing. So we're going to dive into all that in a second. Of course, before we do, we got to thank this week's sponsor, Titleist. And Titleist are the #1 golf balls played at the U.S. Open this week. The Titleist Pro V1 and Pro V1X and the Pro V1X Left Ass are the most technologically advanced in the game and the ultimate golf ball performance choice. And that's why, Mike, every year we seem to see the same thing. The most players are using it. I love the thing about the U.S. Open. It's such a mixed field. The different ways you can earn your spots in. It's not just like a regular tour event. And you just see how many guys at all different areas and walks of the game are playing Titleist golf balls. Yeah, exactly. I play the Titleist Pro V. You're now a left dash guy.
Left dash. Bryson's press conference, he was just talking big about his left dash.
Yeah.
He's loving it.
So look out for that for sure this week at the U.S. Open. And by the way, later in the show, we're going to talk a little bit more about Pinehurst. We had the opportunity to play it. We're going to kind of dive into what we should look for and what we should see and some more of those other press conferences. But let's get back to this meeting because I think this is important. And the reason why we've been going over this so much, Mike, is because we're all kind of holding out hope, waiting, hoping for something to happen, because the indication that we've talked about week in and week out here on the show is that something has to happen to bring them back together.
Yeah, we keep getting teased with little like news nuggets, but the press conference, Tiger looked like he had a happy, face when he was asked this question. He seemed genuine in the fact that there is probably light at the end of the tunnel.
Seemed like he was dreading it a little bit less. Hearing it. And I think what's happening, and this is, as this drags on 1 year, remarkably 1 year, and all the deadlines that have been missed, it's these events like the majors when we do see everyone together, not only on the field, but in the press conferences. Yeah. How great is it that you can hear from John Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau, then you're hearing from Hovland and whatever. This is what we've been missing. So this is why, if anything, we dig into this so deeply here week in and week out, is because we're all just kind of hoping to finally put this behind us, this split. So the meeting, like I said, importantly, it was an in-person meeting in New York City, and all the players were there. So like and when I say all the players, I mean all the important deciding, decision makers were there. When you have to get to a point where you have to make a deal, that's what you want. You don't want half the people in the room, right? So on the PGA Tour, and as we go PGA Tour Enterprises now, the new name under the formation, you had Jay Monahan, of course, was there, and other top executives from the PGA Tour. That's important. You also had, of course, the PIF, their representation, they were there. Additionally, now we have to think of it as a much bigger enterprise now because of the deals that were done with Fenway and Strategic Sports Group. Right. The executives from both of them were there. So you had Fenway Sports Group and you had Strategic Sports Group. Now, on to the players, right? Tiger was there. Adam Scott was there. But here's the one that trips me up. Rory McIlroy.
Interesting.
Right? Because Rory was a guy who was the huge voice in all of it, distanced himself. Then he tried to get back on the board, and it got shut down really quickly. A lot of players didn't like that. We did a whole episode talking about it. Yet he's still there.
Still there. Why? Why do they keep inviting him back to the party? I don't know.
I think it's because everyone knows that he is that important as far as a face of the game and a mover of the game.
Yeah, it's got to be. Sure.
Right. So I think Rory being there indicates that whether it's official or not capacity, whether he's officially on the advisory board or whatever, and now they're developing, and I know all the names is hard to keep up with week in and week out, these subcommittees.
I know.
Is he on a subcommittee? Whatever. The reality is there were 3 players. Now, Rory, I will point this out, he was the only one to take it remotely. Tiger and Tiger and Adam Scott were in the room physically. Rory was remote, but I mean, we all do remote meetings now. We all know what that's like. More importantly, there was only 3 player voices in that room, and Rory was one of them.
That's interesting. Nobody else from the board, huh? It was like the Webbs and the Malnati's and all those.
No, but we did hear from Webb Simpson, which I want to get into some of his quotes in just a second, kind of backing up with some of what Rory said. So Rory did make a statement coming out of this. And again, all of this I feel like is just a little bit where we wish we could get a little more information out of them.
Yeah.
It seems a little bit political in some ways. You read this how you will, but what Rory said is, we remain committed to these negotiations, which require working through complex considerations to best position golf for global growth. We want to get this right, and we are approaching discussions with careful consideration for our players, our fans, our partners, and the game's future. So seemingly a very prepared statement in that way. Right. And it seems, though, to echo the same sentiment that we heard from Tiger just now, which his press conference ended just seconds ago at Pinehurst. And Tiger said, look, both sides, we're getting closer. We there's a few things, it sounds like there's a few things they're not agreeing on, but it seems like each meeting they're agreeing on more and more.
Closer and closer. Yeah, that's what it seems like. Because every update's been a little bit more and more, but still nothing final.
Nothing. And I think our gripe week in and week out here on the podcast has been the dramatic lack of communication, where we are having so much to speculate each week. We're hoping they're getting together, but it's so much of it seems to be still done in secrecy. And even if that's not intended secrecy, it's becoming like that because you got guys like tracking Tiger's plane to try to see where he's at, right? I feel like if it was just a little bit more upfront, and we did a whole episode last week on a lot of people who are upset with Jay and the way he's handled this and not telling us what's happening. It takes like these moments where they try to grab the guys for a press conference to ask. But what was said was that this PGA Tour Enterprises Transactions Subcommittee, allegedly, from what they're saying, and now we were very aware of this meeting. It was very, happening in New York City, in person, whatever. I guess there had been a lot more meetings that are happening, whether those are phone calls, Zoom meetings, whatever. But they said that they've met multiple times weekly over the past few months. So where we being in the dark on it and not getting that constant communication from the higher ups, we're thinking they're not even speaking or there's not enough happening. But now what we're hearing is that they are talking, and it's often. So that's promising.
Do you think the players are being filled in more since last time they were left in the dark? Do you think, and if so, how do you keep 100+ players' mouths shut? Or are they purposely not telling them anything? Like, what do you think's going on there?
It's a great question.
I mean, few guys
you
that know?
See these guys, and like we've been to enough events. You see them the way they're buddies. They're talking, whether it's on the locker room, whether it's on the range.
I got to think all the players on tour know what came out of that meeting by now.
Because you think like there's the casual. This guy said that, and they're talking.
And it spreads.
But what they also do is they have structured, meetings. Like it's not quite a board meeting. I don't want to call it, but they have player update meetings. And I believe there's a big one coming up. I think as early as next Tuesday. And I think then that's when they really start to dig in and you get more. So stay tuned. I think there's going to be a lot more information that comes out of that meeting next Tuesday. And if so, of course, we'll talk about it here on the show. But digging into some of these Webb Simpson quotes, again, here's a guy who's also, on the board but wasn't in those meetings. It kind of, if you read between the lines, you can kind of get an idea of how much they know. So... And here, this is again that communication problem, because if Webb says this, then, and he's on the board, he doesn't know that much. Then how much does anybody know?
Exactly.
He said, the only update I really have is that Friday went really well. So it's like, okay, all right, give us a little bit more, Webb, and he dug in a little bit deeper, and he said, it feels good that we're finally at a place where I think we all want similar things. We all recognize that the game of golf is healthier when we're moving in this direction. There's so much excitement with so much, I think he meant to say many guys playing well.
Yeah.
Scotty dominating. I almost feel the excitement in the air this week, and it's only a Monday, So I think what is that constant reminder of what we are missing out on is these majors and when they're all together again. Mm-hmm. And I think that no one's actually specifically calling out and saying it is what's that all thing that we all want similar things.
Yeah, right.
But no one's explicitly said what that is. Mm-hmm. What I can only say is they're realizing how much their fragmentation, the pulling apart, has hurt from the entertainment product that they deliver.
Yeah. To that point, I don't think, like, last week's product was still pretty great. I mean, you had big names. You had Morikawa and Scheffler going at it on a Sunday at Jack's place, right? But I still think, again, we talked about this last week. I still think that tournament would have been much better with the LIV guys in it.
That's just it, right? It's like the PGA Tour has been able to lean on, and luckily for them, lean on the fact that the bench goes so deep.
Yeah, right.
There's so many great players there that you're ultimately going to still be able to create a great event. Mm-hmm. And Scotty's been such an incredible storyline that people are going to tune in to watch that. But what we'll never know, and we can only speculate on, is how many more people would have watched or tuned in if the field was bigger. What really could have happened? It really leads me to this question, and it makes me wonder. In no way do I want to take anything away from what Scotty is doing. Right? Because I think his dominance is incredible.
Yeah.
But what if these fields did include Bryson? What if they did include Brooks? What would that do? Now, I'm not asking asterisks because these guys are so competitive and he's so dominant. That might have pushed him to even higher. You know what I mean? Like, Scotty could have even played. I'm not just taking it the other way. Scotty could have even played better with somebody tight on his heels like that. But I think of it the other way. I wonder if the real competitive guys, and I'm not saying there's, again, I know everyone wants to hang on every word. I'm not saying there's no competition on LIV. I think it's strong competition that's gotten stronger over there. But I think of these guys who are like these purebred competitors, Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, guys like that. I wonder if they're sitting there watching the PGA Tour events and being like, man, I wish I was there to go against Scotty at his best.
Absolutely.
Remember how many guys say, I want to play Tiger at his best.
Right.
There might be guys who are like, it stinks that I can't be there.
Yeah.
And as fans, we're thinking, it stinks that we can't see all of these guys going against Scotty.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think a better product is for the PGA Tour? Creating another Tiger Woods and having Scotty go on and become the new face of the tour and win and win and win, or having these guys back and having major weeks almost every week?
It's a great question. I mean, I think
Tiger did a lot for the game. When
Tiger did. The way Tiger exploded on, and we talked about this before, like, I think Tiger also had an additional X factor in his personality and his approach to the game. There was a little bit more flair. Mm-hmm. I don't want to take anything away from Scotty. I think it's incredibly to watch that he can hit every shot. I mean, here's a guy who, like, he leads in, like, approaches. He leads in, like, almost everything but putting, right? Here's a guy who's just on automatic versus, Tiger was a little bit of a different player. And there was an excitement level that the way that Tiger would get himself into trouble and get himself back out and all that type of stuff and the fist pumps and whatever. Yep. But I do think that there's something that none of us can debate. It's that if each week we put the strongest field possible forward, that's a better product than even if that field is -1. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You know what's interesting too? I noticed do you see Scotty Scheffler in commercials?
Yeah, what would be the right fit for him?
I don't see him in any commercial. Like, remember back in the Tigers' heyday, he was in every Buick and, like, you name it.
Everybody wanted him. Yeah,
but now, Scotty's just, like, quiet, sneaky, great. In a way. You know what I mean? Wholesome, family guy. He's a great story for the tour. And if this guy wins, like, 6-7 times a year, I think that could be great. Because now everyone's going to tune in to watch Scotty.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
yeah, and the records and the stats he's putting up are incredible. Like, he's already broken the earnings record for, like, this season, season, and we're only, like, halfway through it. I think there's a degree of that with Scotty that's by choice.
Yeah.
We see it, we hear it. His devotion to his family, his desire to be home and do that stuff.
He doesn't need to be on a Cadillac commercial near Houston,
right?
Making
I think he's plenty fine with the money he's making. I think he's very laser focused, which I commend him on the events and he's playing in. I think there's a lot of stuff that he turns down.
I'm sure
that he doesn't need to do.
I'm sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Just interesting, yeah.
It is. But regardless, like I said, I mean, this is that indication that we're close to something. But what's that something that's not been indicated in any way? That's the problem that I think, like guys, like tell us, like, okay, you're all moving in the right direction. They're using all these almost like these corporate terms.
Yeah.
Like we just had a great meeting. Everybody's moving in the right direction. I'll circle back on that later. Okay, great. What are those things? Like, can you at least fill us in, somebody, on what the shared goals are? Are the shared goals that just between the PIF and the PGA Tour enterprises, and they strictly monetary?
Yeah.
Is it like, oh yeah, the PIF recognizes that it's a good investment to be part of the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour recognizes that it would be great to have that cash injection from the PIF as well. So the deal is it's going to be $3 million, whatever. What bigger than that? Is it that your determination is for people to play together more often? That's what we're reading between the lines and thinking that's what everybody wants, because that's what we as fans want. But is that what they want? And was that going to mean a lifting of the suspension or the ban by the PGA Tour? Because I don't think that there's a world now that exists where guys want LIV to dissolve and just come back.
Yeah, no.
I think these guys enjoy what they're doing on LIV, all that stuff.
Yeah, they love it.
I think it's more so, how do you get it where guys can do their thing over there at LIV, but also come back? And we talked about this on a tournament by tournament basis. Where are you a defending champ? Where is it your main sponsor is the sponsor of the tournament? You know, are they picking and choosing that they want to play in the Waste Management, the Genesis, the whatever, where at least we're getting some more than 4 at-bats where we see everybody?
Yeah, right.
Right? So that's what I want to know. And if you guys have any ideas of what you think that they're indicating when they say we have this shared kind of goal, or all kind of knowing we all want the same thing, what that is, drop it in the comments. Let's do a break right there. Let's do a word from our sponsors. Then I want to come back and I want to talk a little bit more specifically about Pinehurst this week and who we think that you really got to look out for.
All right, guys, now you can experience a new standard of style and craftsmanship with FootJoy's latest limited edition release, the Red Clay Premier Series. Drawing inspiration from the storied golf legacy and iconic red clay of Pinehurst, North Carolina, these shoes seamlessly blend tradition, innovation, and elevated design. I mean, look how cool. I got them right here. I'm going to open them up, Frank. There's so much classy style. And guys, with Father's Day around the corner, you might just be in for the biggest win ever, because or even just hint to someone that you want these, but just take a look at these shoes. You know what I'm saying?
I'll get you on there.
They're beautiful. There, yeah. Look how nice that looks. Oh, man, they are just amazing, guys. You can read up all about this. Go to footjoy.com. They're right on the main website today. They're going to be probably selling out pretty quickly, so definitely jump on these Red Clay Premier Series.
And also, you guys have heard us talk a lot about Golf Zone Social. Now they've got 3 locations in New York. You got West Nyack, Scarsdale, now Brooklyn. We got to go down the Brooklyn grand opening. I think it's the coolest space.
It's so cool there, yeah.
They just seem to get better, and that Golf Zone technology is amazing when it comes to their simulators. Most realistic, most accurate. I mean, you got the whole floor that moves, simulating lies. It really takes that next level of indoor golf and bringing it that feel of outdoor. Now, if you want to try it for yourselves, what a better place to do it. We're going to be hosting a tournament June 22nd to Saturday in Brooklyn. It's actually coming up next Saturday. So there's still some spots. You got to get registered though. Go to golficity.com, register for your spot. In addition to getting, 18 holes in the sim, this chance to win what I'm going to talk about in a second, you also get food, we're gonna drink. It's really cool because it's I don't know whether it's just a great restaurant that has sim, or if it's simulators with a great restaurant. Either way, you get great food, great drinks, all that type of stuff. Here's the kicker: whoever wins is going to take home a golf simulator of their own. We've got a $3,000 Golf Zone Wave to give away to our winner. It's the one that's got that great putting mat. It's really, really realistic. 100 golf courses that you can play at home. So if you got some game, bring it down to Golf Zone Social, play against the field that we're going to have there, and more importantly, just be there to have a good time. And even if you don't want to play, if you just want to come and hang, we're going to be there hanging for the day. Drinks, food, it's all going to be there. So mark your calendars, June 22nd in Brooklyn, New York. Make sure you get registered. golficity.com/register to register your spot. All right, so we had the opportunity to get down there and play the course. We actually got a chance to quickly talk with the champ, Wyndham Clark.
That's right.
Who is, by the way, just what an awesome dude. Like
So
when you
chill.
meet some people, like you end up rooting for them harder.
You do.
And he just and I'm not just saying this, like there was a lot of press there that day, and he took the time. He stood there and he just like was going to make sure he answered every person's question, not rushing anybody until he was done. And then when he got out of there, he had to go right over to his tournament.
Quail Hollow.
Yeah, Quail Hollow. So really cool guy overall. But, we had a quote from him this week. And when we were there to play it, we had the good fortune of that it was a lot of rain recently. It was about as soft as it was going to get, right? And he's going to get faster and firmer. And his quote, he said that the greens right now are borderline. And he was worried that, if they got any firmer, they were going to be just too tough. And his own prediction was that a winning score could very well be par there. Oof. Now, having played it, and we don't hold a candle to anybody who can play at the U.S. Open, so it's tough to take our opinion on playing a course. But it's just like firsthand, man, that place was rough, and these guys are gonna have a full test.
Oh yeah, I mean for sure. The key there is keeping the ball in the fairway, right? I mean we've experienced it. It was U.S. Open conditions. The grandstands were going up. I love getting invited to those events because you get to really preview it. Now, we didn't play it from the tips. We're not going to be
We're
that
not
stupid.
even allowed to.
Yeah, they close off
they
those tee
close them
boxes
down,
anyway.
yeah.
But, hey, man, I mean, those greens, we've now played them twice. We went back in 2021, and I feel like they're always going to be tough. I mean, you cannot hold the ball. What's the caddy's famous line? Don't celebrate a shot until it stops.
Don't celebrate until it stops rolling. And the other thing that the caddies told us famously there is that go where they mow.
That's it.
Yeah, because the conversation every year is always around the U.S. Open is how thick the rough is. Well,
Sure.
what we've got uniquely here, and I think this is what's going to really play into it, and it's going to drive players crazy, and it's going to drive anyone who's betting on this, DraftKings or otherwise, crazy, is the way that the waist areas work. It's where the traditionally a rough would be. It's usually a couple paces off of the fairway. And it's a very sandy surface, right? Very loose sandy surface. But there's these wire grass plantings. And you're going to probably be, by the time we really roll into the broadcast, you're probably going to be sick of hearing it because they're going to see how much.
They're gonna talk
But
about it a lot.
it is one of the biggest defenses until you get to the greens. We'll talk about the greens in a second. But they're sporadic. These thick, tall, very hard to explain unless you've seen them. Just how dense and tough they are. This particular plant, and they're sporadic. So if your ball rolls off into that waist area, there is a chance that you're going to get a clean lie.
Yeah, right.
There's also a chance, and I'm telling you, this is pure by chance. It's just where it stops rolling that it could be in one of those plants. And there's going to be very similar to what we see like at the Open Championship with some of the bunkering where like there's no chance but to kind of come out sideways. There's really nothing you can do there. So it could be very much a roll of the die that if you get in there. Additionally, if they continue to get faster and firmer, depending on the weather that we get, it could be not as much mistake driven. It could be more mental mistake because we think, sure, avoid it altogether. Like this is the U.S. Open. Like if you don't want that chance, then don't go into the rough. Don't miss the fairway. But the reality at Pinehurst is, and the way that it's designed, is that you can hit a great ball, and if it's too firm and too fast, it'll keep rolling, and it can end up in there. So that's why we've even seen some equipment changes. That's going to be another huge story to look out for. You got Tiger Woods put the 5-wood away. He put a 2-iron, I believe it is, in the bag. You're going to see guys who are going to just really put a priority on fairways if they have to take some distance out of it.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a tough course. There's no doubt about it. But what's great? The feeling of like, you and I had some really great shots out there. We played it pretty decent. But I know these guys are going to struggle because that thing is playing as a beast. And yeah, man, that wiregrass is tough. In fact, yesterday we put out a fun reel on Instagram just showing me drop a ball right before the wiregrass and putting one in the wiregrass. And a lot of the comments are rolling in like, I'll take the wiregrass any day over the other one. And I'm like sitting back thinking, I'm like, you know what's interesting? Because if the ball goes in there, it's kind of teed up.
Yeah.
And you could fire your club through it.
Right.
If it's behind it, it's a clean lie, but now you have to go through
Right,
it.
you have to go
So there's
through it.
all these different,
Yes.
It's going to be a disaster.
So my thinking is more when I say a game of inches, it's whether you end up behind the wiregrass plant or not.
Right.
In it is its own separate
Yes.
thing, but like if it's behind it
Yes.
or not, that's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, sure.
But It's going to play long.
Be fun.
They're going to be
watch.
playing. Like, I understand something. The greens are these kind of like the way they're rounded. It can roll off in many different directions, and you're playing some of these par threes at 228 yards. So holding a green like that, what I like about it from a viewership standpoint is it's really going to test, and Tiger said in his press conference today, there's not a shot out there that's not going to be tested, and that's what it should be for the greatest players in the game.
Absolutely.
They should have to try and test all of their different shots. But playing a little bit to Tiger's strength, and Tiger was asked, does he feel like he's got his game in the right place, his physical health in the right place to win this thing? And he's going to be asked that every time, and Tiger always says yes. Yeah. But what bodes in Tiger's direction, unlike what we saw in previous years where you had at least a few hills that had to be climbed, some a tougher walk, Pinehurst is a very easy stroll. It's flat.
Yeah. Not hard.
Very little elevation anywhere on number 2. I think that this could mean where we don't have what we've had recently in the past couple of events. Tiger has a great, Thursday, maybe Friday round, and we start to see him fall off. We saw that at the Masters, right? He made the cut, he did that, and then he struggled through Saturday and Sunday, definitely with some fatigue. I think we might not see that out of Tiger. I think you might see Tiger go all the way, and while I would love to see him win it, I don't see it in the cards with the field that you've got here, but I would love nothing more to see Tiger in a top 15.
Yeah, I mean,
that would be fantastic.
His putter's got to show up. That's the biggest problem. His putter has to show up. If he starts making putts, it's going to get exciting. It's going to get exciting if you have Tiger making the cut this week. I guarantee it. You got Scotty probably up in the top 5.
Right.
Xander, Colin, they're going to be duking it out. Rory's going to be in the mix.
Well, in an effort to not make it the all Tiger show, let's talk about the rest of that field. If I'm putting my money anywhere, it's Scotty.
Yeah, I think that's
it's
sure
dumb
thing.
to not throw a couple bucks on Scotty, because although his putter has been kind of the worst of his game, it's not the worst in the field as it once was.
Yeah.
He put that together. It's relative when I say it's the worst, and I think he's 74th in strokes gained putting on the tour right now.
Yeah.
Whereas in other places he's in the top 10 of everything else. What I think is so important is I think Scotty, if anyone, his level of accuracy right now will be the one who will avoid that rolling the dice into that waste areas. I think that it may just come down to whether the putts are dropping or not. I think he's going to put himself in position more than anybody else is.
Yeah, it's shocking when you see Scotty struggle. Like, I think on Sunday he struggled a little bit. He missed some of his spots.
Did.
And we're scratching our head what, this guy's human. But I think for me, I think you can't sleep on Morikawa. I think he's a breakthrough soon somewhere. And Bryson, I put money on both those guys. And then my sleeper, Tom Kim.
Tom Kim's the sleeper.
I feel like he's a sneaky favorite to win, but as a sleeper.
Yeah, I mean,
he's playing well. So
I like Xander Schauffele this week. The way he's played,
it's so hard. The field is so strong.
It's such a great field, and that's what it really comes down to. The wild cards for me are Jon Rahm and Brooks Koepka.
Yeah,
because I think either one of them has what it takes to win this thing.
Yeah.
It's just so tough. The form has not really been there, but they're both guys who rise to occasions.
They do. Now, Rahm's injured, but we'll see how it affects him.
Exactly. Rahm could still play injured better than most people, right? Koepka, though, even more so. He's got this other gear.
Yeah.
And it could come out of nowhere.
I feel like a bigger gear than PGA Championship for Koepka. I think U.S. Open, I feel like that's his bread and butter.
So look out for him. Bryson DeChambeau, I think similarly, you never know with Bryson. Like, he could come out of there with a strategy that, he can massively shorten this course up with his length.
And I'm nervous about Bryson, though, because I feel like he really wants to capitalize on what he did at Valhalla. He won back the golf world, right? It's safe to say.
Yeah.
Fans, everything. He was all over the news as Bryson is great for the game. I feel like he's going to want to do that again, and I just hope he doesn't overhype himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's too crazy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, just settle down, play your game. Like, you've got fans now. People are going to be rooting for you now more than they were at PGA because we've grown a new love for you. So, I don't know. I'm just curious to see how he fares this week. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the depth of field continues. The other ones that I think to look out for are the kind of the steady eddies, so to speak. So, right, you've got Cameron Smith.
Yeah.
Max Homa.
Yep.
Victor Mats Fitzpatrick. Hovland, of course. Lowry.
Yeah.
These are guys that
Fleetwood, Finau. Stop it. It keeps going.
But those are the guys, especially with their game, Homa, right? A guy like that. They have this really good ability to keep themselves out of trouble. And if this is going to be a game where the guy who wins is like kind of like the prediction that we heard from Wyndham, like around even par, you know, if you can get a guy who's just like, they're just making those pars. We're not saying like the dramatics of a Koepka or of a DeChambeau, but these guys are like steady Eddie, or I even think just the way that Cameron Smith won a few years ago at St. Andrews, and just some of the creativity. I'll never forget like him playing on the road hole. And you think about this similarly, elevated greens, fast, tight conditions on and around the greens, and some bunkering. If those are the guys who play that well, even think back to the year when Keimer won and he putt everything from off the green. I think the kind of the guys who manage to have, maybe they don't have the most flashy game, but they stay out of trouble, but also have this ability to get up and down from different positions and be creative. Watch out for them.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man.
We're going to have an exciting one no matter how you look at it. And hopefully, like I said, stay tuned. I know the focus is really going to shift towards the US Open now. And a lot of guys, they want to keep their focus on that major week. They don't want to talk about other things. We're going to get through this major, and then you never know, next week players start to come together. Maybe there's a bigger announcement that these guys are sitting on that came out of that meeting. So let's all continue to keep our fingers crossed that this game can be reunified in some way, because we all know it hurts it by being apart. And we'll continue to keep our eyes on it. Subscribe wherever you get podcasts, and we'll see you in the next one.